after releasing her latest audio recording on MSNBC to my colleague Craig Melvin. She says it was recorded on December 16th, 2017, and it stars Trump's campaign official and daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, just days after Omarosa was fired.
But listen, obviously with like the New York Times article and stuff, you know, it's
what's the New York Times article?
The one that it was in the New York Times today. I guess you did with Maggie Haberman, or they wrote about you. It sounds a little like obviously that there's something you got in the back pocket to pull out. Clearly, if you come over as a campaign, like we can't have, we gotta.
Oh God, no.
Everybody's positive, right? And so the only thing that we have to consider when we're talking salary as far as the campaign is concerned is that, as you know, everything is public. And all the money that we raise and that pays salaries is directly from donors, small dollar donors for the most part. So I know you were making $179 at the White House. And I think we can work something out where we keep you right along those lines. Specifically, let me see, I haven't even added up the numbers, but we were talking about like $15K a month. Let me see what that adds up to. 12. Yeah, so that's $180,000. Does that sound like a fair deal for you? In terms of your position specifically, I really feel like your position would require, you know, you to be able to be flexible in terms of where you are. Sometimes, you know, come to New York for occasional meetings, but I would love if you could, you know, occasionally go do speaking engagements and that sort of thing for us. I think you'd be awesome doing that. And so it doesn't really matter where you are. If you're comfortable staying in D.C., then, you know, we're more than happy to have you.
All right, then, to start this hour off, joining me now is NBC News White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell. Danny Savalas also joins us. Kelly, we've heard from Lara Trump on this latest tape. Since it was released, she's already responded.
She has, and so has her father-in-law, putting out a tweet where he references a new RNC video that captures all the highlights of Omarosa Manigault Newman when she was in the Trump camp, and sort of a little subtle from the president. We don't see that very often, where he thanks her for what were glowing terms that have been put together in a compilation. But with his daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, who is a big part of the campaign, when I'm out on the road covering his MAGA rallies, those Make America Great Again rallies, as they're branded by the campaign, there are videos that the audience gets to see before, hours before the president arrives, where she is sort of the mistress of ceremony. So she is very much a part, both visibly and behind the scenes, of the campaign. She released a written statement in response to the audio tape that Omarosa Manigault Newman debuted here within the last couple of hours. And Lara Trump says, when Omarosa was fired by the White House Chief of Staff in December of 2017, my entire family was concerned for her because we had no idea about the basis of her dismissal. We still wanted her on our team because we cared so much about her personally. That's why I reached out to offer her a position with the 2020 Trump campaign before we knew anything about the gross violations of ethics and integrity during her White House tenure. Another one of Omarosa's bombshell tapes is a fraud. So this is the daughter-in-law of the president trying to make sort of a couple of points: that they had family concern, that they were willing to work with her because of the long relationship, and then again trying to go after the character of Omarosa Manigault Newman, who describes herself as a whistleblower by saying that the way she conducted herself was lacking integrity. And this is a more personal side of this, because we've seen the president do some tweets. His daughter-in-law, married to Eric Trump, is now adding into this because she was brought in through that tape where she is offering a lucrative job at the campaign with relatively loose requirements. She could live in any city she wished, like New York or D.C. She could also make appearances on behalf of the campaign and attend occasional meetings. It didn't sound rigorous, but that was at least the initial pitch made by Lara Trump to Omarosa Manigault Newman. We also hear in that tape, which I think is interesting, where she raises the issue of concerns about keeping anything sort of in her back pocket in reference to perhaps unflattering things about the Trump organization, campaign, or family. And Omarosa Manigault Newman says, oh, God, no. And so how ironic that here we are 8 or 9 months later, and there are lots of unflattering things that she is more than willing to roll out with the documentation she's providing to support her new book. Allie?
All right. Interesting, Danny, that she uses the word whistleblower. Is that of any significance in this matter?
Yeah, this is a crafty use of the word whistleblower because it has legal significance. What it means is that in the law, federal employees and government employees are protected if they see waste, fraud, and abuse in the workplace and they decide to report it. They can't be retaliated against for whistleblowing, as it's called. So when Omarosa uses this terminology, she's a very well-prepared witness, as we would call her in court.
It's like she's putting herself into some sort of a protective bubble here to say all of this is in the context of me whistleblowing, me telling you about some bad acts.
And she's not a whistleblower by virtue of just calling herself one, but it's helpful to frame herself as a whistleblower, as opposed to somebody who may just be trying to profit from a book. If in the future there is some action against her and she can position herself as a whistleblower under the law, as the law envisions it, then that offers her protection, additional layers of protection that she might not otherwise have.
So in an effort by the Trump campaign to silence her, to get an injunction against her, which they've indicated they want to do, does that also come into play? Can she say, well, I'm not just somebody talking about stuff, what do you have to prove to be a whistleblower? That what you are doing is in the public interest?
That it's more than just rumor that there's some sort of theft or waste or fraud going on at the government job, that there is some crime, some sort of illegal activity going on, something where funds are being misappropriated, and you can demonstrate that, then you can be entitled to federal protection under federal law. And if you are retaliated against, similar to our employment law, you are protected, and those who retaliate against you could potentially be held liable.
So let me just ask you this. Lara Trump tells her, we'll give you $180,000 a year, but you can't say anything bad. That's pretty clear that there's a quid pro quo, but it's campaign money.
Exactly.
Is that a problem?
The more I think about it, I mean, it's a close call, but it is the campaign. It's not the same as the government retaliating against her. And I think the biggest factor for Omarosa is that in response to this offer, she could have walked away. Nobody was full out threatening her that we will take legal action against you.
They were just saying, we'll pay you to not talk about us poorly.
Let me run those numbers. Let me see, 179 divided times in weeks, and it ends up being exactly the same. What do you think about that deal?
So it may seem unsavory, but it's not clear what rules have been broken. All right.
Yeah, at this point, I don't see it.
Danny, Kelly, thanks to both of you for your reporting on this. Switching subjects now, Trump made headlines of his own by publicly revoking the security clearance of former CIA Director John Brennan. But amid some suspicion over the White House making this decision during this tumultuous week of Omarosa headlines, the Wall Street Journal reports the decision may have actually been about the Russia investigation. In an impromptu interview, the president drew a direct connection between the special counsel's investigation and his decision. Quote, I call it the rigged witch hunt. It is a sham, Mr. Trump said in an interview, and these people led it. He added, so I think it's something that had to be done. I want to bring in Peter Nicholas, the Wall Street Journal's White House reporter who conducted that interview. Peter, where did this even come from? I mean, this reminds us so much of the Lester Holt conversation. Did the president, I mean, was he trying to explain something away and somehow ended up connecting this to the Russia investigation, which can't actually be better for him than just the suggestion that John Brennan was an erratic guy?
Well, he was talking about why he did it. He was talking about the rationale for the decision, and he was saying that he doesn't like these people. He doesn't think that they're performing well in some of their public appearances and their speeches, doesn't agree with what they're saying.
And these people being the people they listed, John Brennan and the eight or nine names of people who he said he's considering removing
Well, he mentioned specifically Peter Strzok, the former FBI agent. He mentioned John Brennan, and he mentioned Andrew McCabe, the former FBI official. And he was saying that he was just not happy with them and thought that their clearances needed to be revoked or evaluated. And as he was continuing down this path and discussing this, he did mention the Russia investigation. And he said, I'm not a target of it. He said that it's a sham, it's a witch hunt. And then he said, these people led it. So he drew this a line between the Russia investigation and security clearance issue, which some members of his staff really weren't doing. So it's a bit at variance in what his staff is saying, where they're saying, you know, this was trying to clean up a process where too many people who are undeserving have these security clearances.
So this business of these people led it, that's a whole brand new conspiracy theory, because he's taken a whole bunch of people who are not actually all that well connected to each other in any context and has suggested they led it. He has implied that John Brennan holds some responsibility for the Russia investigation going underway. That's a little fantastical.
Well, we know that John Brennan was part of a team of officials who briefed him when he was president-elect about the Russian Russian interference and meddling in our elections. So he does seem to, in his own mind, he does seem to associate him with the Russian investigation, yes.
And so the worrisome part here, Peter, is that if he associates people who brief him on things with bad things that he doesn't like, where does that stop? I mean, the idea that Brennan and others knew about Russian interference in the election or had information that they needed to share the president and then are at the receiving end of this, of his punitive measures, that's sort of worrisome in a functioning democracy.
Well, I asked him about that during our interview, and I said, I mentioned that there are some critics who say, are you not just targeting Democrats and really, you know, political opponents, people you don't like? And he said, look, if there were a Republican who I thought was crazy or incompetent, he would consider revoking their clearance too. But we've yet to see that happen.
All right, Peter, good to talk to you. Thank you for your reporting on this. The Wall Street Journal's Peter Nicholas. Jurors are deliberating right now in the trial of former Trump campaign aide Paul Manafort, campaign chair, really, Paul Manafort. Still ahead, we're going to tell you what you need to know about what happens next and what this means for the special counsel's investigation. Also, remembering a legend, Aretha Franklin passed.
This is just the beginning of the type of corruption that's going on in Trump world, and I am here to blow the whistle.
What kind of other corruption?
You know, there are things that I write about, and then there are things that I'm going to save to share when the time is right.
Omarosa Newman from the top of the hour indicating she has more tapes and she's not going anywhere anytime soon. That is going to wrap up this hour of MSNBC Live. Katie Turner standing by. I'll see you tomorrow morning on Today.
Craig, I think we might pick up where you left off.
All right.
Craig Melvin, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Omarosa Newman is back, and she says, yes, she can back up all of her claims. Yesterday, by all appearances, the White House tried to get the president's formerly loyal aide off TV and out of the headlines by abruptly announcing Donald Trump revoked the security clearance of the former head of the CIA. And while the John Brennan story is a big deal with potentially chilling implications for anyone else daring to criticize the president, the distraction tactic did not work. Last hour, Omarosa implied to Craig Melvin that yes, she has the evidence, yes, she has the proof to back up her claim that the president knew about Hillary Clinton's hacked campaign emails before WikiLeaks released them in 2016.
In a conversation with Katie Turner that caught my attention, you were talking about those hacked emails, those DNC emails before they were released, the president knowing about it. Here's what you said.
You were instructed, according to your book, to bring up the emails at every point you could at the end of the 2016 campaign.
Correct.
Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yes, that was our talker.
Did Donald Trump know about those emails before they came out?
Absolutely.
He knew about them?
Yes.
He knew what was coming out before WikiLeaks released them?
Are you speculating, or do you have proof? Because here's the thing, that, by and large, I mean, I haven't finished the whole book, that's the most explosive allegation that you've made, and it's not even in the book.
Yeah, there's some things that are involved in this investigation, the Mueller investigation, that I was very careful not to put in the book.
So you do have proof?
I can't even talk about the things that I talk with them. I can't talk about the things I've submitted to them, but I want you to know that I will fully continue to cooperate with this investigation.
And you stand by what you said on our air a few days ago?
I have been able to verify every single thing that I put in the book. I've verified everything I've stated, and every single time the Trump people challenge me, I bring the receipts.
And again, Omarosa did not provide NBC with her proof. She didn't say it right there, but she did imply she's already given it to Robert Mueller. So our big question is this bluster or is Omarosa the smoking gun? Joining me now, NBC News White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News intelligence and national security reporter Ken Delanian, White House reporter for The Washington Post, Ashley Parker, senior reporter for Vanity Fair, Emily Jane Fox. Both Emily and Ashley are MSNBC contributors. First off, she also released a new audio tape with Laura Trump, and Laura Trump has now released a statement. I just want to read that to get it out of the way. From the beginning of my father-in-law's campaign, Omarosa was welcomed into our family as a trusted friend and confidant. On the Women for Trump tour, including Omarosa, we formed a sisterhood bond that is unlike any I've experienced in my life. We toured together, laughed together, and worked really hard toward a common goal. We never would have imagined that one of our own was secretly recording all of our private conversations. Back to the WikiLeaks stuff. And Ken Delanian, I do want to start with you because this is an explosive claim from Omarosa that the president knew about the WikiLeaks emails before WikiLeaks released them. She's not offering any proof, but she's certainly implying, Ken, that she's handed that stuff over to Robert Mueller's team. And just in case you were wondering or maybe questioning whether she actually was interviewed by Robert Mueller, I checked in with one of her lawyers, and one of her lawyers did confirm that.
Right. I mean, this goes to the heart, Katie, of the collusion case that some people suspect that Donald Trump was involved in, which is, did he know in advance about the Russian hacked emails? You know, you asked him at the moment he asked Russia to find the missing Hillary Clinton emails, and you followed up and made sure he wasn't kidding. From that moment on, there was a question about what did the Trump campaign know about Russian efforts to pursue Hillary Clinton's emails and then release them through WikiLeaks. If she has any evidence to that effect, if she has any tapes, that's absolutely explosive. And judging from her interview with you and from her interview with Craig Melvin, I'm assuming the special counsel has all of her tapes, has thoroughly debriefed her, and they may be calling her back for more after the interviews that she's giving just to make sure they've gotten every last drop out of her.
And she did say that all of that information was not in the book. Ashley Parker, let's remind people about what Omarosa's role was during the campaign and whether or not she would have even been in a position to know if Donald Trump knew about those emails. Again, I've never heard anybody in Trump's orbit say definitively that he knew. I've never heard that from anyone now until Omarosa said that. And she does write in her book that she was instructed to talk about Hillary Clinton's emails at every chance she got.
She does, and during the campaign, her role on the one hand was to be a very public-facing figure and to defend the president against charges of racism and sexism and misogyny, and basically just defend anything that then candidate Trump did or said. And she seemed to do that very willingly during the campaign. And you're right, the real question is, would she have even been in a position to know what President or then candidate Trump did or did not know about the WikiLeaks emails? One thing about her is that on the one hand, this was an incredibly chaotic campaign and still even incredibly chaotic White House where people do flit in and out of meetings and of places where you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be or where it's not even appropriate for them to be. On the other hand, Omarosa was known for shirking her duties, so she wasn't always around. She wasn't always even in the meetings she should have been in. So to me, that's it's a fair question, and it's a very big open question.
Could she have a text message? I know the president's not very technologically savvy when it comes to putting things in emails or putting things in text. He's more of a person that'll pick up a phone. But could she have a text message or an email or even a recording of the president saying, even off the cuff, yeah, I know this one is coming out? Remember, there was that moment where he, right before the Don Jr. meeting at Trump Tower with the Russian lawyer, where he did say, I am going to make a big speech on Hillary Clinton, et cetera, and that didn't materialize, presumably, and who knows, because nothing really came out of that Don Jr. meeting. Then again, I don't know if nothing came out of that Don Jr. meeting.
The president has certainly said things, and especially the timing of them and the content of them, that do raise eyebrows and real questions about what he knew and when he knew it. To your point, I think it would be the president he uses Twitter avidly, but he does not text. He does not email. So I think it is highly unlikely that she would have a text or an email from the president himself. We just don't know about a possible recording, a possible offhand comment, or maybe an email from someone else in the campaign of talking points, you know, to really hit the WikiLeaks emails before anyone knew exactly what was in them.
Now, according to Gabe Sherman of Vanity Fair, the president is furious about this, and he's even tried to tell his attorney general to arrest Omarosa. Let's listen to that portion of Craig's interview.
Shortly before we came on